What is up, everybody? Random FPV here with another edition of Random FPV Interviews. Tonight we've got ScareCrow FPV. ScareCrow, how are you?
Very well, sir. Good to see you back in the chair, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of
Appreciate you coming on.
course, of course. Honored.
Right? ScareCrow is my second guest since I've been back. For those of you guys that were wondering, I just took a little time off streaming for about a year. I was still building, still flying, but I just decided to take a step back from streaming and just get some priorities straight in my personal life. But I got all that worked out, and I'm back with a vengeance now, so I'm happy to say that. I'm going to give some shouts out to the chat. We've got Billy D, Broccoli, Chainsaw, Plummet, got Reaper X, Richard Dauberstein, Remy Tim, Ryan's RC, ScareCrow, you're in here, Tony Briz, and Will Brown. Anybody that I missed, go ahead and just let me know, and I'll be glad to give you a shout out. I don't know if I got John Hart on that list or not. Looks like Nix is in there. We got Pokey. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
somebody mentioned Stingy's doing a stream, so unfortunately we may lose some folks to Stingy, but that's all good. See who else we got. Josh Cook, Quadraphenia, Billy D. It's nice to see all y'all. Looks like a few people left the Stingy stream.
Right on.
We appreciate that. So for those of you that don't know, tell them a little bit about yourself, ScareCrow. Where are you from?
I live right now in Asheville, or just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. So I'm just over the hill from you,
Yeah,
over
we
in
probably got
Knoxville.
pretty similar flying environments, I'd say. Except
Probably,
you've got some
yeah.
bandos. I don't have any bandos very much.
Man, they're disappearing. They're turning everything into art galleries and like, chic little like artsy fartsy hotels and everything. Like
No
we're losing
kidding.
pretty much yeah, and because of like just the terrain, I think, like because it's so mountainous here, that we don't even have like office parks or strip malls really. So it's getting tougher and tougher, to find good spots. But it just, I don't know, just forces you to be a little more creative. I'm sure it's happening everywhere to everybody, because everyone I speak to says, oh, we're losing all our spots, and then you just kind of forces you out of your comfort zone, and you just got to be a little more creative when looking around.
I'm gonna
But
try to. They're saying my audio's a little off. Guys, let me know if it's fixed now or if it's still bad. I may have to disconnect my mic and reconnect it. We'll wait and see. Let's see. Yeah, Broccoli said that clock tower is sweet. Looks like they've been checking out some of your video.
that's
We're
the
gonna
only
play that. We're gonna play that
cool.
here in a little while, so you guys can check out some of ScareCrow's flying. Because those of you that know ScareCrow probably know him for his audio-video work with pictures and with video, for some big companies. But he's a pretty damn good pilot. I've been checking out your stuff, and I'm pretty impressed.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. I
Yeah,
try.
no, you've got some skill, man, for sure. All right, they're saying it sounds okay. You did sound like a monster for a second. Billy D says, "That's
you, you,
hilarious."
you
Sorry
sound
about
good. You
that.
sound good to me, man.
Sweet.
So
All right, so you're from Asheville, and how long have you been into FPV?
man, the story is kind of like long and meandering, but I've been flying. I guess what is January, so almost exactly 2 years.
Okay, so
I
not
got
that long, not like 5 years or anything.
no, not all that long at all. I guess I got my first FPV quad Christmas, yeah, Christmas 2 years ago. So
That's even more
it's
impressive to
thanks.
me
It's
that you've
my
only been flying a couple years. You've got the natural gift, I would say.
ah, thanks, man.
Yeah, brother.
It's just
So
like anything else, man. It's just making time to practice.
it's tough, I know, especially when you got so much going on. So what's the very first experience you had with FPV? Did you see someone's video? Did you stumble upon somebody flying? How did you find the hobby?
I found the hobby in early late 2017 or early 2018, just tumbling down a YouTube hole. I came across the Gates of Hell video with Tommy and Steele, there was a couple of other people. It was an old DRL, like a kind of like a featurette. It wasn't like a real race. It was just kind of like Tommy and like I just remember vividly, like that was the video where Tommy like told the whole story about his father and everything. Umagod is who I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this stuff is really, really, really cool. And that was right before my move up to Asheville. And then I moved from South Florida up to Asheville. And then, and then I just got preoccupied with just kind of building a new life here with my girlfriend. So that got all put, on the back burner. And then the Christmas before last, my dad randomly got like in with like some like weird Chinese toy drone company, and he was like writing instruction manuals for them and like testing their stuff, and he sent me one. And then I just kind of like wandered back into the whole kind of exploratory phase of kind of learning about things and just kind of looking at my options. And then just before Christmas, a couple of years ago, I ordered my first quad. It was the Leader 120. It's like a little 2.5-inch buddy.
Right.
And I got that from Banggood, and I played the sim for like the whole month that it took for the quad to get here. And it came, and I just proceeded to just destroy it in every way imaginable. And then I got my remix. I built my first 5-inch quad, and that's kind of how I just kind of wandered into dealing with the Rotor Riot guys and all of that, which was it was very, very shortly before I met you the first time over at Bardwell's house at Quad Camp.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I remember that.
I had only been flying for I've only been flying like a real quad, like a 5-inch quad, like for like a month when we went there.
Okay.
And yeah,
I know we've met a few times we met at Rampage and got to fly together too.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was a great time, man. Rampage is actually how I ended up working in FPV. It was just kind of like a weird series of like happenstances. And yeah, it was interesting how that whole thing took place. But Quad Camp was like my first real introduction to like the first time I really ever like flew with a group of people. The first time like I ever actually was kind of like surrounded by, people like us. Like it was such a cool experience for me to just be, to spend like I only spent one day. I went for the Sunday, and then we came back on Monday, and you were at the when we shot the episode out at that park.
Yeah.
The hot potato radio.
Yeah. Did that ever even make it? That didn't even.
Yeah.
Ever, did it make it?
Yeah. It took like a couple of months for them to drop it, but yeah, it came out.
So
we'll go back and watch it.
We'll have to jump back into all your working in FPV, because some people watching may not know, but you've actually had your hands in a few different companies.
I have, yeah.
But let's finish a little bit more on your quad story, and then we'll go into that.
Sure.
So
sure.
I started on a Taro 130, which is a similar. It's not. I mean, it's about 10 millimeters bigger. So I can relate there to your start on the Leader. When you got your Leader and you started flying, did you know you were? I mean, were you hooked from the get-go?
I was hooked as soon as I got I ordered the quad off of Banggood, so it took forever. But I ordered my radio. I might have got the radio off Amazon, so I got the radio like more or less immediately. And I was hooked as soon as I downloaded the DRL sim and started playing. I was like, this is insane. This is so much fun. So I was hooked before it even got there. And then when it showed up, it was nuts, man. I mean, it was like the most like exhilarating thing you could do while standing still.
Right.
It was just like the whole concept behind it is nuts, because you're like kind of like sending your consciousness out into the world through this tiny little machine. I don't know, it's very like sci-fi.
It's surreal.
And that whole, it is super surreal, and it satisfies like so many of my like habits. It satisfies like my tinkering habits. It satisfies like my photography habits, my my video, like all the computer stuff that comes along with it. I get to explore music through it, so it really like is like a fantastic umbrella for almost everything that I love. And I think that once I started making friends and started really like getting into like watching other people's flight edits and stuff, and really kind of grasping like the totality of it, is when I really just I couldn't stop. It was just every dime I had, I spent on it. Every moment I had, I was watching videos or learning. You know, people like your friend JC and then Bardwell, like those videos, like I was just feeding myself. Like I was just feeding my brain, like while I was waiting for my first quad to arrive, and then, immediately following, like, like just getting it set up. Like all those guys helped me figure out everything, because it was, I don't know, it was like a snowball. It was just like one little thing, and then like an avalanche.
You went down the rabbit hole.
I did. Oh, head first, man, head first.
So who would you say are some of your favorite pilots to watch?
My favorite pilot ever to watch is Schizo, hands down. There's just something about what he does. He's got a way of just making you think he's going to do one thing and then doing something totally different and 10 times more magical than what you had just anticipated. And I really I love his taste in music. He's a fantastic musician. He'll probably be, he's a little more humble about it, but he's a fantastic piano player. And some of his videos were the first that I saw. It's just like him just floating around, with just like piano riffs in the background. Is just, he's one of my favorites. Drew is one of my favorites too. He's got a very like, I like when it comes to like flight edits, I really like videos where they're hopping from one subject to another. You know what I mean? Like some people just have that style about them where like there's always a thing in the frame that they're moving around. And I think, from a visual standpoint, it's really cool. Like I totally respect people who can do like really crazy stuff, like who can, just bust out like there's like the guys like the super high rate gang, who
Right.
just do like really gnarly stuff. Like I totally respect that. But when it comes to like just me in my spare time, just like watching videos, like I really prefer, the type of videos like Drew and Schizo. Like I really just love their style.
I can't fault you there. They're both excellent pilots.
But I do like, and that's one of the things that's so cool about this though, is that there is like an actual discernible style between pilots. Like Stingy is just like very bombastic, like these giant powerful moves. And then you have someone like John who's just kind of like snaking through the trees. It's really, really cool. Like, and one of my favorite things ever is just watching people's style like take shape, like other people who have started flying like similar time, as me. I like following people, and I like watching just them find their place, because that is like probably the most fun out of all of it, is just like learning to find your own style, finding what comes natural to you and what you enjoy. And then it just, you don't even realize it, but like when you're done with the flight edit, you're like, wow, like I just expressed myself. It's
Right.
weird, but it's really cool.
So we've got some folks in the chat bringing up your side work in Viva La Vox. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I could talk about the band for a minute. Viva La Vox, we actually just celebrated the 10th anniversary of our first album release a few months ago. So that was very exciting. We started as a band down in South Florida, and it began just the singer in the band was my neighbor, and we were both just kind of the weirdos in the neighborhood. We lived in a kind of a fancy schmancy town in South, like a little beach town in South Florida, Delray Beach. And we had both found this like same little, it wasn't even an apartment complex. It was like hardly above like what you'd consider to be like a bomb shelter. like built in, like it was one of the oldest buildings in the city. It's just like a little 5-unit little like courtyard, like mud hut, basically, like built in like the 1920s, which if you know anything about South Florida, that's like unheard of. That's like the first settlers, like,
Right.
got down there like in the 20s when they built, when Flagler put the railroad down, from Jacksonville down to the Keys. But anyway, so we were neighbors and we were both just kind of found each other, man. And there was a coffee shop like 30 yards behind our apartment complex. So he was making music and I was always making music. And then we just kind of joined up with a couple of other guys and we started doing like open mic nights and stuff at the coffee shop behind us and started playing sidewalks and we got our big break. We would go and play at the laundromat, the 24-hour laundromat on Friday nights at midnight. We did that for like 6 months and we ended up with like, there were nights where we had like 100 people at the coin laundry.
That's awesome.
And then it was pretty gnarly, man. And that's it, man. Like we've been doing it ever since. The lineup has changed a little bit. I left the band for 5 years. We've been back together for about 5 years almost now again. So it's been a wild ride. We travel a lot, we tour a lot. I think we just got back from Gainesville last month. We're putting the finishing touches on our new record. I think we've got like 7 albums. I don't know. You have to look on iTunes.
That's pretty
it's
good.
all there.
That's pretty good for 10 years.
But we try, man. We try and we keep busy. We play a lot of, we play the Muddy Roots Music Festival right out near you over at just outside of Nashville every year. It's like 2,000 or 3,000 people camping for the weekend. That's a great time. So we keep busy. It's weird living up here now. Like our singer lives with me and my girlfriend, and now we just kind of like hide out just kind of hibernate during the winter. Like I'm still learning how to winter. I'm still learning about seasons and stuff. It's
coming
weird
from
when
Florida, that can be a big change. But I bet you guys fit right in Nashville.
We try. I'm such a hermit, man, that like I'm trying. we try to play here in Asheville like once a month, and that's probably one of the biggest things is just starting from scratch, like moving to a new town where nobody knows you. In Florida, we'd draw, 150, 200 people at every single show. And it's like walking into a club with like a demo tape, like, will you book our band? It's weird, starting all over again, but we do fit. Asheville was a great town for weirdos and creative people. Like I really like it.
Yeah, I love all the houses are painted up all different kinds of bright colors and stuff like that. It's a really artsy, very what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know, like eclectic.
I've got a word in mind. Yeah, eclectic. That's it. Eclectic. It's a very eclectic town.
Yeah, it's a fun spot. We just kind of, my girlfriend and I just kind of picked it at random, more or less. We were just like, we want to get out of Florida. Asheville's nice. I played here a couple of times with the band, and she visited here before with her friends, and we just kind of threw all of our stuff in a truck and moved up. It's
Back
pretty
when I was
gnarly.
spinning records, my favorite place to play was a club in Asheville called Hookah Joe's. It was a hookah bar, and it was really intimate and really laid back. Like it wasn't somewhere where you're going to get 500 people raging out or anything, but
right.
It had a great sound system, and I just loved going to Asheville to play. The owner and me became pretty good friends, and yeah, it was a very nice place to play for sure.
Yeah, we played a lot of we played a lot of hookah bars and stuff down in South Florida when we were first starting. I've always enjoyed them, oddly enough. Like it's just like they're super chill. It's hard to go into a hookah bar and not have like a decent night out.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't drink, so it's like places like that like are fun for people like me. Where like I could still go out, but it doesn't get weird and people don't get crazy,
And you didn't mention this, but you play the stand-up bass in Viva La Vox,
I do.
right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I play upright bass. I am a big fan of doing everything the hard way. We kind of like we play rock and roll, but we kind of do it with like old timey instruments. There's something to be said about like tradition when it comes to certain things. And the reason I play upright is just for that reason alone. You know, in a worst case scenario, like we don't need electricity to do what we do. You know,
Right.
we could do it on the sidewalk just the same as we could do it, you know, in an auditorium. You know, it's and there's just like, even though we never do that anymore, we don't play sidewalks and stuff anymore. It's really, it's just nice to have in the back of my head to know that, like, you know, there's some level of truth to this, you know, like we could still do it with just, you know, strings and wood and concrete. You know, I don't know, it's kind of like an honesty thing. And it's
No,
kind
I
of like,
really respect that. I totally understand where you're coming from. There's a lot to be said for it.
but yeah, in my next life, I'm going to be a harmonica player. I'm just going to walk in with a tiny little briefcase that fits in your back pocket and do my thing, because the upright bass is not, it's hard
It's
work.
not
And you
easy
need a
to
big
haul around.
No, and you need a big van. It's like kind of like a cross between like electric bass and karate. It's it's not easy.
And have
Stingy
you played
plays
the
upright
upright
bass
bass
too.
the entire time you've been with the band? Is that been your instrument the whole time?
Yeah. I played electric bass for like 15 years before that in other bands. And when I was Tony's neighbor, our singer, a guy I had worked with, his wife was throwing him out of the house and gave him, and he was like, "I got this thing. Do you want it?" And it was like a little mariachi version of an upright bass. It only had 3 strings. It was about like 4 feet tall. And like any good hoarder, I was like, yeah, I'll take it. And I just learned to play it. And then I started playing with these guys. And then right before the day before we recorded our first record, my real first upright came in the mail. And I've been playing it ever since. I still play the same one for like 10 years now.
You rebuilt that recently, didn't you?
Oh God, yeah, I did. We were playing over in Waynesville, which is kind of like halfway between here and where you are, almost. Well, at least it's in your direction. And I threw my bass up over my head, and when it came down, it smushed. Upright bass has like an end pin, the little wooden pin that it stands on when you play it. And I threw it up over my head, and when it came down, the whole bottom of the bass caved in, and I just kind of shit a solid gold brick at that moment. And we had a show the very next night up in Roanoke, and I found a local luthier who he would not work on my bass. He would not fix my bass for me. But after like a half-hour conversation, he went from "I won't touch that thing with a 10-foot pole" to "Why don't I take you on a guided self-discovery and we can fix it together, and I'll just show you what to do." And that's what I did. I went over there every day for a week, and he just showed me what to do. He showed me how to take the bass apart. We clamped it all together. We glued everything back together, and it works. I am really, you know, it's one of those things there are just people in this world who are just, you know, craftsmen. And it's something that I've always aspired to be. And it's not something that I am at this point in my life by any stretch of the imagination, but there's something to be said about keeping tradition alive and keeping, you know, like trades and crafts alive. You know, that's something that I just personally have like a humongous respect for. So when this guy was willing to, at least even for a week, just kind of take me under his wing and show me how to, you know, how to fix this giant wooden instrument, it was really, really, really cool. And I just respect people like that a lot, you know. So maybe one day I'll be an expert in something, but for now I'll just watch in awe as other people are.
I can really understand more about you, though. It's like you've got these two different spectrums where you've got the natural with the bass, and then you've got the like high tech with FPV quads, you know?
It is kind of weird. And I guess there is some sort of balance there. You know, I don't know. I'm always just fascinated by complicated stuff. You know, I'm one of those people, like when I was growing up, I was always the kid. I was always in those classes that they put people in who they said was, you know, like like he's really smart, but he doesn't do anything. Like that's so I've always been stuffed in those like special classes, you know, and I've just been like, I don't know, maybe I just have like a problem with like boredom and ADD, and it's hard for me to like simple things, no matter how cool they are, just don't really hold my attention for very long. You know, I like working for a result.
Complication.
Yeah, and I like the payoff. Like I like the hard work and then the payoff. You know, and I get that with FPV in a very in a very hardcore sense. You know, it's
Do
like
you do you build all your own quads?
oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I built and I'm constantly just salvaging things. Like I'm constantly salvaging quads. Like I try to keep always at least like one more quad than I'll ever really fly ready to go. So I've always got like two or three that are always ready to go. And then I've always got like another two that are in various states of disrepair that like when the itch happens, like I can just kind of bust out the soldering iron and scratch that itch to build, you know. I think building is I mean, and you're a builder, so you know how it is, man. Building can just be almost as rewarding as like a great day in the field, I
Yeah.
think.
It is more
You
to
know,
me. It's more rewarding. I don't know. I'm absolutely in love with building and repairing.
me too. And I feel like for me, maybe it's different for you, but for me it comes in waves where I'll have like 2 weeks where like I don't really have the itch to fly, but I'll have the itch to tinker. You know what I mean? And then it'll go the other way where like right now I'm in the middle of the other kind of wave where like I really want to get out and fly, and I haven't actually sat down at the table to build in like maybe like 10 days or so, partially due to my trip, but also I just really haven't had the urge. So it comes and goes, and that's one of the things I really love about this hobby is that like there are so many ways that you can do it without being bored. You know, you can build, you can edit video, you can take photos, you can fly. Like there's so much to it that no matter what kind of mood you're really in, like you can still make it about FPV. I think that's not something a lot of hobbies really have. It's like you do a thing and then that's the thing that you're doing. You know, but with FPV there's so many different aspects to it that like, it's hard to be bored. I think if I'm bored in FPV, then I'm just boring.
No, you make a lot of sense. I've never thought about it like that though. Never really just put it all out there like that. That makes a lot of sense. So I know you mentioned you started with the leader, and then you mentioned you built a remix.
I did.
Are you still flying the remix?
I bring it back to life from time to time. I brought it back to life. The last time I brought it back to life was back in May. I wanted to do like a 1 year anniversary flight with my first quad at the first spot that I'd put my first video out. And you know how it goes, just troubles. The quad just had gremlins. Like that build just had gremlins. So I never got around to doing that, but I still have it. I will always still have it, I think, hopefully. And I that just goes back to doing things the hard way, because that is definitely not the first quad you ever want to build.
No, it's not an easy
Like,
quad.
because like when you're at a point where you're just beginning to understand like how the parts work together, and then you're trying to understand like what beta flight is all about, and you build a quad where the entire stack is upside down and sideways, it was a discovery. It was the long road. I
Yeah.
took the long way to my first flight with that.
My
But
first car was a Volkswagen Bug, and they say if you can drive a stick shift Volkswagen Bug, like once you've done that, you can drive anything. And I think it's kind of similar with the Remix frame. And I bet that actually helped you with building other quads to build such a difficult quad as your first real build.
I absolutely. After building that and kind of just learning the ins and outs of how to remap motors and how to like this the board orientation and all that crazy stuff that goes along with building that quad, like it made everything else I've built after that seem a little easier, for sure. So I'm happy that I did, but it's just I don't know. It's something like it just was a really cool looking quad to look at. I loved the way it looked. It was angry and weird looking, and I don't know, I had to have it. I got a PayPal credit card, and I built it absolutely like straight to spec with Tommy's how Tommy built it in his build video. But well, I put Dribs motors on it because I wasn't flying 5S, but yeah, it was an adventure. It was
They
a good
fly
quad.
completely different than any other quad too.
They do, and I didn't really I didn't. It took a while for me to appreciate that. It wasn't until I built a couple of other different quads and flew a few other quads, like more traditional, like top mount, style quads that I really began to appreciate. And it's one of those things that like I go back to it. It wasn't until last May when I rebuilt the Remix to do that anniversary flight that I really was like, wow, like there is actually like a noticeable difference between the way this quad flies and that one. And a regular top mount. So yeah, it's definitely noticeable. It's unlike anything else. And I just kind of pop back in from time to time to revisit that. But it wasn't until I flew other things that I really began to appreciate it. I didn't have anything to compare it against at first.
Right. You use the X-Lite transmitter, right?
I do. Yeah.
You like
I'm
that?
like the only. I love it, man. I'm like the only person I think that I know who uses one, but I love it. It's I just love the portability of it. It slips right in a little cubby hole in my low pro bag, and I'm done with it. Like I don't. It doesn't take up any space. It doesn't. It took some getting used to, but I love it.
And are you thumbs or pinch?
I do kind of like the weird. I have the same. Schizo calls it the raptor claw. I do the same kind of grip that he does, where it's mostly thumbs, but I have my fingers up top to just kind of like guide me a little bit, to offer like a little bit of support. But yeah, I can't pinch. It's weird to me to try to do that. It's too much hand movement.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. That's one of those. That's just one of those topics, man. Everyone's right and everyone's wrong when it comes to grip, but I just kind of settled in on that kind of halfway mark.
I always say whatever works for the person,
Absolutely. Whatever gets you there, man, for sure. But I found that, it doesn't, the X-Lite doesn't take a strap, so you have to hold it. But I don't know. I like it. I bought it because I thought it was cool looking and because it was small, and I'm just trying to kind of like I'm trying to minimize my obstacles between like that, like for going outside and flying. It's like, I don't want, because the more time I have to like pack up my bag and sort out my stuff, and I'm just going to make an excuse not to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I like that transmitter, just because I love that it lives in my bag. It takes up no space. It runs on like the two little 18350 batteries. Like I have extras. Everything lives in my bag. So like really, if I get the itch, I run out the door before I could talk myself out of going. Because if I don't cash in on those little moments of willingness, then it'll be 2 weeks, 3 weeks will go by before I go out and fly again. So.
What was your second 5-inch? Do you remember?
My first was the Remix. I want to say my second 5-inch, I believe, was the Schizo Nova. I'm 99.9% sure that it was the Nova, because I still had the Remix when we went to Rampage. And then the Nova, and then Rampage was when I met Schizo the second time, because we met him at Quad Camp. He was at Quad Camp at Bardwell's house.
Yeah.
And then I fell in with him and the guys at Flight One. And I flew, it was the Nova, because I smashed my Remix in the field and Schizo gave me his Nova, and then I bought like 2 more. And then I went to work for Flight One. So I probably have like 5 of them in my garage.
So do you run Flight One on everything still?
No. I still have, I always have at least one quad that's got Flight One on it, because I just like to stay in the loop. I love what Preston does. Like I love the firmware. It flies great. I think for people getting into the hobby, you cannot do any better than Flight One, just because of the ease of setup. Like, and there are people, you know, it's another one of those topics where like there are people who say that it's like doing everything, like learning everything in beta flight is like a rite of passage. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think that's nonsense. I think whatever gets you in the air, whatever helps you get there, you know, with the least amount of trouble is a great thing. And I think that Preston is always, he's always, you know, no matter what he's up to, like Flight One is always, he's always working on it. It's always moving forward. Like he never puts out a firmware and then sits on it for 2 months. Like it's like every 3 weeks he's improving these little things or those little things, and he's making it very, very easy for people who have never flown before to just get in the air. And I respect that. I think that's fantastic. Like I've always, so, but you know, it can be hard sometimes to find Flight One gear. So I keep a couple of boards. I buy them when I see them, and so I fly like half and half beta flight, half Flight One. I have 3 quads that are identical builds. They all have the Brain Radix, the little 20x20 stack in them.
Nice. The Lee or LI.
Yeah,
Radix LI.
yeah, exactly. I have 3 quads that are identical because it's just one of those things. Like, you know, you want to have a few quads that all fly exactly the same if you want to, you know, actually get familiar. So like, you know, this year I've kind of, or this past year, I've kind of taken all of the advice that people, you know, that you see over and over in all the groups, and really just try to sample it all. Like, because everyone says that, like, build 3 quads that are the same. That way, when you crash one, like you learn it inside and out. Like find your rates and stick to them. Put them all on the same rates on every quad. Put the same gear in every quad, and learn it inside and out. And I've found it to be very, very helpful. But I do have a couple of experimental quads that have Flight One boards in them, because I still do love the way Flight One flies, and I like to keep up with whatever it is that they're doing. If not, you know, for any other reason than to just stay in the loop.
Nothing wrong with that. I love the Radix gear. I've got 2 quads running that, and they fly amazing. The OSD is amazing. I've just had really good luck. They're really resilient. Actually, in my remix, I've got the Brain 30x30 Radix, and it's been going strong for like a year and a half.
Holy cow!
I can't. Yeah, I put it in there when they first started. Well, I don't know if that was when they first released them, but it was early.
That's awesome. Yeah, I switched over to, I started that, like I was spoiled with Flight One. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like setting up like building a quad with Flight One takes like, you can be from like parts to test hover in like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and you build 15 quads that way. And the last thing you ever want to do ever in your life is go near a beta flight board. But, you know, I got back into the beta flight stuff, and I fell in love with the Brain stuff. I think they make a great product. I've killed a couple of their boards, but they deserved it. they definitly deserved it. Like they were glorious events.
Tell us about it.
The last one I killed was, and we'll see the clock tower later, but in the clock tower video, I hit the flagpole that's on top of the clock tower. You should be able to see it in a couple of the clips. I hit the clock tower, the flagpole on the top, and I bounced off the roof, and it's like a 285-foot drop into the mud. And yeah, nothing worked after that. The frame was fine. The frame was spotless, but the board was done.
What frame were you flying?
The tack frame. I fly. Okay. I fly almost exclusively right now. Flynoceros, the tack edition Skull V3. I love that frame. And even as an employee, the warranty comes in handy.
Right.
It's cheaper to you do the warranty than it is for me to buy like a replacement part with my employee discount. So
there you go.
Which is nice. Yeah. But I've it I like that frame, but it's also like kind of like special to me because it was the first frame that I saw through like from beginning to end of like the development with Josh at Flynoceros.
You had a
So
hand in
like
some of the development, right? You were kind of giving suggestions and that kind of stuff.
I randomly drew up like a variation of the side plates for the Skull V2, and it became the Skull V3. Josh kind of took my scribble drawing and made it his own, put his little twists on it, and we just kind of it all just happened on a whim. It was never like we're gonna sit down and design this new skull frame. Like it was just like I was looking at a frame that I had hanging on the wall, and then I was looking at the skull, and I just kind of had an idea. And I have this thing where like if I have an idea, I got to get it out of my head. So I just kind of scribbled it out on paper and I sent it to him, and he thought it was cool, and he actually made it feasible, and it became the Skull V3. But I can't take credit for it, but I could. But it was the first frame that I saw like the whole process that a frame goes through from like concept to like real frame in your hand, and it was really cool. So it's a little special to me, but I also love the way it flies, and it's tough as nails. So
So let's talk a little bit about your work in the industry. I don't know that our viewers do or don't know, but you've worked for several different companies since you've been involved with FPV. Who was the company you first worked with?
the first company that I ever actually worked for was Flight One. And that began at Rampage, was when that ball started rolling. I made friends with Tyler Brennan from our Race Day Quads at Rampage. He had a booth there. It was actually right next to the Flynoceros booth. So when I was visiting the Flynoceros guys, I just met Tyler, and I did a little bit of side work, like a little bit of piece work for Tyler. I did a couple of banners for his website, and I was talking to Schizo and mentioned to him that like, oh, I might do a little more work for Race Day Quads because I'd been talking to Tyler. And I guess he said something to Preston, and the two of them conference called me one evening and were like, we want you to come work for us. I was like, okay. And I was doing, next thing I know, I was like a wholesale manager for Flight One. I was overseeing like just customer service for all their wholesale accounts. So it was interesting because it's like way out of my like area of expertise. Like I'm a visual worker. Like I do visual things or music. I'm not really like, I don't think I'm organized enough to handle like wholesale accounts for like a business or whatever, but I gave it my best shot, and I did it for like 9 months, I think. About 9 months from just after Rampage until this past May. So it was like at least like 7 or 8 months.
I'm showing some of your photographs from Flight One as you're talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I did do like just kind of to scratch my own itches. I did some like photography work for them for the website, and for various social media posts and stuff like that. But for me, it's just like it's always been a way of showing appreciation for the things that people take the time to create. Because if you want to get rich, making flight controllers for drones is not really the way to do it. So these people, it's a labor of love for every FPV company. There are very few companies that are larger than like 5 people. And I guess like publicly, like from a public, image standpoint, you imagine these places like companies like Flight One or Rotor Riot, even like as like this giant team of like 24 people or 30 people doing all this stuff. And it's always like you look behind the curtain and it's like, half a dozen people at the most. So like, photography, like the way I started linking up with these people was just, I just started taking pictures just as a way of appreciation. So that's, anyway, yeah, that's how I fell into that. But then I worked for Preston for like 8 months, and then I took the spot with Flynoceros, and in between those two, I started working for Rotor Riot, which was super fun. I've had nothing but great experiences working for all these companies.
That's awesome.
Like it really is like I know it's business and it can be stressful because there's money involved, but you're really dealing with a bunch of people who just love the industry. They love the hobby. They care about what they do. Like I've never encountered anybody that I've ever worked for who was just like putting out garbage to turn a buck. Like I've never encountered that. Like it's really nice to be surrounded by people that are as passionate as the people that I've been lucky enough to work with.
Showing a picture you took of the skull right now, man. You do some really great photography work.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. My, it's weird. It's like everything just kind of come full circle. Like my father flew. I think he's in the chat somewhere too. But my dad has always flown RC planes. So when I was young, he would drag me out. We went to in Delray Beach. There's this place called Murakami Museum, and they had an airfield that I guess the AMA club, was renting or whatever. And so on the weekends when I was young, we'd go out to the field and fly. And then he's actually there's always been a camera in the house. And I just kind of fell into it. It's just another form of self-expression. I think I just enjoy tinkering, and I enjoy, discovering more. I learned a lot about myself through these things, So, but like I said, it started, my journey in FPV as far as working just started as kind of a show of appreciation. I bought the Remix and I started taking pictures of it, and I did a little commercial for Rampage for Flynoceros. That was my first introduction to those guys. One of my local friends here in Asheville, Biff FPV, he manages their freestyle team. So
Right.
he turned me onto their frames and hooked me up with Josh Ingram, and I did a little commercial for Rampage for them. And then, 6 months later, I started working for them. But
Awesome.
everything I know how to do, I actually know how to do because of playing in bands and being broke. It was like I learned how to take photos because our band, has, no matter what I've been doing, bands need photos, and we're always been too broke to pay a photographer. So I learned how to do that. I learned how to do Photoshop and stuff by making show posters and show flyers, and video editing is the same thing, like making little promo edits and music videos and stuff. I've just always been the guy that's been willing to learn these things because they need to get done. I've never been trained in any aspect of anything that I do, which I don't know. I might need to change that soon.
So tell us about some of your time with Rotor Riot.
Okay. I started with, forgive me, I'm pouring coffee. I started with Rotor Riot last January. It started right when they left Flight Test, right when they split the store in half was when I came in. And Chad hit me up one day, like I've always been, ever since I started taking photos and got into FPV, they've reposted a bunch of my photos and stuff. So I've had like a little bit of a friendly relationship with them. I've always loved what they do. Their channel, like for a lot of people, I'm sure, like it gets you through rainy nights and long nights, and when I'm sitting at the table building, I would just I'd put it on autoplay and just let Rotor Riot play for 2 hours while I was learning to build. And Chad came to me last January and was like, we need to find a way that we can actually work together, but I can't afford to just hire a photographer. So what can we do? So I went to work with Rotor Riot doing the same thing I was doing for Flight 1, just helping in wholesale. And eventually when he joined forces with Tyler Brennan at Race Day Quads, Tyler took over the store and consequently took over wholesale. So there was really no need for me anymore, but rather than put me out of a job, he was like, I'll pay you a certain amount of money. You come down to Orlando once a month and do like auxiliary content. So I want you to film stuff for Instagram and take photos and, film stuff for Facebook. And that's how it started. So I went down to Orlando, and my first trip down there, it's so hard to explain what Rotor Riot is like from the inside, because it's not as organized as people would like to think that it is. Like you always see comments about like, it's so scripted. Like my job at Rotor Riot would have been so much easier if there was anything like a script anywhere. It's a lot of just figuring out everything as you go along. So I was supposed to be doing like featurettes for Facebook and Instagram. And my very first project was an episode called Hang Time with Paul, where this guy came over from West Palm Beach, a graffiti artist, Paul Hughes, who's a phenomenal artist. He came over from West Palm Beach just to visit, and Drew took him out flying, and Chad was like, take this camera and follow them around. And I was like, okay. And it turned into a Facebook episode, and the Facebook episode got so many views that they put it up on the channel. And then the next thing I'm working on real episodes, which was really crazy. It was really, really crazy to go from just being this guy who takes Instagram photos to being behind the camera, like during an actual Rotor Riot episode, was quite a transition. It was exciting, and it was scary. It's a lot of pressure.
I bet. It's a lot of fun too, right?
Oh, there is no fun on earth like being on a Rotor Riot shoot, for sure. You got to imagine it like this. Like YouTube has a specific style. Chad, when he worked at Flight Test, had a specific style when he was behind the camera. His son Christian, who does a majority of the filming, has a specific style. Like there's a specific thing that YouTube channels do when they're making content like Flight Test or Rotor Riot. And that is a skill that takes a lot of time to learn. And when there is no script at all, when you have nothing but like a vague idea of, we're going to go out to the field and we're going to try to do this, videotape what happens. Like it takes a lot of time to build those instincts. Like who's about to talk, like where are you pointing the camera? Like who's saying what? Like you get a rhythm for the conversation, and it's like, it's hard work, man. It's very hard work, but it's a ton of fun. The first actual Rotor Riot episode I filmed that I knew was going to be a Rotor Riot episode was the 3D heli episode with Jeff. It was like 3D helis versus drones, I think it was called. And that was just absolutely terrifying. I don't know if you've ever been anywhere near like a full size, like 3D
They're
heli.
scary as shit.
But Jesus Christ, man, those things make a sound that will just strike fear into your heart faster than anything on earth. And like not being able to look around me, like being like looking down at the viewfinder on the camera, like chasing, Christian was videotaping the pilots, and I was videotaping the helicopter. So I'm looking in, and I can hear it. I could hear it all around me, but I couldn't see it. It was scary. It was scary. It was a lot of fun though. Like it's kind of just like being there to videotape like science experiments, like there was really no like real, like you never knew what was going to happen when you got out to the field. It was like, hey, we're going to put an FPV camera in this and we're going to fly it around. So grab your memory cards and the camera, gear up, and let's go. And that was it, And like I said, like if I knew who was going to say what when, or even like had any inkling like that, my job would have been 10 times easier. It was a hard job. It's a lot of pressure because you can't redo anything. If you miss a moment, if you're pointing at the wrong person, or you're pointing, in the wrong spot, and you miss a moment, you miss a reaction, like it's gone.
Yeah, you can't
there's
get it again.
No, you can't. And when these people, like for me, I'm surrounded by people who I looked up to since the day I've discovered this hobby.
Right.
I have Chad Capper behind me. I have Vortex next to me, Drew's next to me, Cricket, Vanover, like Bardwell. like all these people are all around me, like, and the pressure to just, I mean, forget about the episodes for a minute, just on a personal level, like the idea of like disappointing these people in any way was immense. Like that's like, that made me very frightened
It was
at,
heavy.
you know, it's like, it is heavy, man, because I want to do right by them and I want to do them proud, you know, and to think that like for any reason that they would ever be disappointed in me was a lot of pressure, and which says nothing about them, because at no point did they ever pressure me or make me feel bad for anything.
No,
You know,
it's your own
they've
internal
always,
pressure.
but it's just, you know, I get in my head, you know, and there were days where like I was, you know, scared shitless, for lack of a better term, that like, you know, and it, you know, long days, you know, but there was no fun on earth like shooting with those guys. It was so much fun. Like the demolition episode, that was one of the gnarliest days of my life, period, in regards to anything.
Yeah, who
Like
gets to
where,
experience something like that? Not very many people.
dude, that was nuts. We it was, I think it was a Thursday night. We had just got done shooting with uh Alex and Drew. I think that was the night that we did the hyper smooth versus real steady episode, which was just like an in studio shoot. And the in studio shoots were the longest, because those are the shoots where you could do things over again if you messed up. So we had been shooting all day, and at like 10 o'clock, Drew gets a phone call from Sebastian, who I hope is in the chat. Um, and he's like, "Hey, they're blowing up a building tomorrow in Jacksonville. You guys should come, and I'll get permission, and you guys should come and film it." And we made the decision, Drew and I, right there, to at 10 o'clock at night, to go film a building demolition 4 hours away at like 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning. So we packed a bag and we drove 4 hours to Jacksonville. We got in at like 2 a.m. to the hotel, and we got out of bed at like 4:30 a.m. and we were like on site for the demolition, like ready to go at like 6. Nuts.
Damn.
Dude, that was like the longest day of my life. That day felt like it was a week.
And so now you're working with Flinoceros, right?
Yep. I started back in May. I left Flight One, and I started with Flinoceros. And like I said, I made friends with them really at Rampage, and I love what they do. You know, they're as far as frame companies go, they're just very creative. Like the frame designs that Josh comes up with are just very, very imaginative. And I've always just kind of had a soft spot for like, you know, for people that are like that, for people who are willing to just kind of step out of, you know, we could build a box frame like every other frame and we know it'll sell, you know, but he still takes chances on his designs. He's not afraid to use his imagination. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
and I like that about him.
The TPU mount on the skull is just really innovative in my opinion. How mounts on those 2 TPU pieces.
Yeah, it's genius. He's very, very good at, like, he's actually, and I didn't even know this about him until like a month, like 2 months ago, but he's like an MIT graduate. Like he's like a serious like scientist. So like when he's sitting there and designing, like he's like really using like his imagination, and he's really like kind of pushing the boundaries of like what should and shouldn't be done, like in frame design. And I just think it's super cool. Like, so I do all the social media management for him, and I make just whatever content we need. Like I do newsletters and stuff. I do like short little promo videos. If we run like a YouTube commercial, I make the YouTube commercial, that kind of thing.
So you're still getting to
And
be
occasionally,
very creative.
thank you. And occasionally I offer my totally just unqualified input into various things, but you know, I think we get along great. I think we make a great team. It's me, him, and Biff, who I mentioned earlier, who oversees the team, and then we got a great team of pilots who just good, enthusiastic bunch of guys who are out there flying and repping the brand. Many of whom are in the chat right now, so thank you guys. Got the hashtag Team Flyno in the chat.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. Showing some support. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good people. so yeah, so that's where I am now. So I work for Flynoceros, and I also work for Newbie Drone at the moment. Curveball.
Right. Doing similar kind of stuff.
Yep. A little more graphic design. I do like package design mostly for them, and I also do like product shots for the website and stuff like that. But a lot of like package design. I did the box for their new little remote, a couple of their flight controllers, that kind of thing.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So props
So
off.
David from. Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
you're
right ahead.
fine. Props off wants to know if you're going to go to I/O in 2020. If you know if you'll be at I/O.
I certainly hope so. I don't know if I'll be there in any official capacity with any company, or if I'm just going to hop in my truck and drive. But I certainly hope so. I went with Rotor Riot last year, and it was a great time. That was a lot of fun. But whether or not I go depends on my ability between now and then to acquire some form of small electrical transportation. That place is so big. If you don't have like a one wheel or an electric skateboard, it's just miserable.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 acres in the middle of Indiana.
It's huge.
It's so big. Like, they're like, it's 1,000 acres. And I'm like, whatever. Like, if it wasn't for Vanover having a golf cart, they would have found me like turning to dust in a field somewhere, because every field was like, everything there is to do at IO is like a half mile apart, a mile and a half apart. Like, you can't even see the fields from one to the other. It's nuts, but I certainly hope to be going. That is my plan. My plan is to go.
So BWAS FPV wants to know who has the longer mustache, you or Steele. I think right now you've got him beat.
Probably, but I will say this: my mustache is older.
There you go.
That's it.
Been rocking it for a while.
Yeah, I stopped shaving in 2007. This is all that grows on my face.
That's just, you got what you got.
I got what I got. Yeah, a rare hairless Italian.
That's hilarious. So let's watch a couple of your videos. I know everybody's wanting to see the clock tower video.
Okay, yeah, there's actually not a whole lot of flying in that one, but I just really like the way it came out. It's kind of more about like finding a thing and hitting it than it is about like me flying. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because like,
you did some really good videography in it.
Thank you.
B-roll is phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, so I like to use that video as an example of things you can do without a whole lot of equipment. So like all the B-roll on that video I shot with my cell phone, and it's just a cell phone and the Hero 7 that was on the quad. I think I love watching people kind of step out of their shell and really dig into like editing and that kind of thing. And I think a big misconception is that like you have to have like a really fancy camera, or you have to, you don't really, there's a lot you can do with just the things you already have like on your person. As a matter of fact, everything I've ever done in FPV as far as like photography work, like for everybody, I did on like a $300 camera. So,
no kidding.
Like I just recently upgraded my camera just after Thanksgiving. So everything I ever did for everybody, I did on like a $300 camera. So it's really just about like just making the most of what you have, and being willing to explore the limitations of whatever it is that you're using. But yeah, that's my rant about that. Use what you got. The best camera is the one that you have.
Can you tell us what model camera that is?
The one that I was using?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Sony A5000. The last time I searched for one, I think I found one used for like $250 or something like that on Amazon. B&H Photo is a great site that always sells, like, it's a reputable site that has a good selection of used gear. But a Sony A5000 and a 50 millimeter lens, and that was it. So like the camera I got as a gift from a friend of mine who won. I drove him to a vaping competition, and he won. And he gave me his camera because he was going to use like the $1,000 that he won to upgrade his camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he gave me that as like a, just a gift for driving him all the way to Miami. And I've been using that for the last like 5 years, 6 years. I've used that camera. So yeah, so it's, you don't need much. You just need, just need to be willing to learn the ins and outs of whatever it is that you have on you.
We really appreciate you sharing with us, man.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Of course.
We're going to watch Construction Deconstruction now. I just started it.
So that video was taken literally like 15 minutes after the fire trucks left. I went out to meet a friend of mine, a local guy who I believe was also in the chat, Remy Tim, my friend Daniel Moore. We were meeting at a construction site to go flying, and I got there and he texted me and was like, I'm going to be a few minutes late. Ha ha ha. I was like, okay, cool. And I walked across the street to the gas station to grab an energy drink, and I turned back around and I just see black smoke. And then like it slowly starts to come together that like the smoke is coming from the area where I was going, and then it's on the same side of the area that I was going as my car, and then my walk turns into a run, and I ran around the fence, and my car is just on fire. The front of my car is just entirely engulfed in flames. I had I managed to snap one photo of it, and it was after the flames had kind of subsided a little bit, but they were like 10 feet tall. Like I thought they were going to burn the power lines. And I come around this corner and my car's on fire, and everybody who was in the Applebee's is like, there's like 25 people all lined up on the sidewalk watching my car burn. And all I could think was, all of the things that I love are in that car. My bag, like my flight bag with my best quads, all of my, my goggles, my radio, all of that stuff is in my car, as well as my brand new camera. Like everything I love is in that car, and the car is on fire, and no one will let me near the car. They're like, you can't go near the car.
What caused the fire? Like what was,
Dude, I don't know. I don't know, man. The firemen took the best they could guess was like, almost every time we see this, it's because of some kind of rodent went up into engine and either chewed something, or just they crawl up in there and they get wedged in there and they just burst into flames once the motor gets hot enough, I guess. I don't know.
Holy shit.
They could only speculate, but I mean, it was kind of crazy because it's like, okay, my car is on fire. Oh wait, it's the front of the car, not the back of the car. Okay, so that's good. And then it's like, but the whole car could catch fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I just went back and forth between like total panic and like only a little bit of panic. But the firemen managed to I mean, they split the front of the car open like a can of sardines. They showed up with like axes and stuff, split the motor open, and they put out the fire, and they managed to get the trunk open, and my props weren't even warm on the quads that I had strapped to my bag. So I was very, very, very relieved. And then as soon as the fire trucks left, I called a tow truck. And while we waited for the tow truck to come, me and Daniel went flying. And that was that video. So it's one of those things where like FPV saved my ass, like, and it's a subject that I think a lot of us understand when it comes to like what FPV does for you as like a living human, as far as like just being able to escape into it, and deal with stress and trauma and all of the things that FPV kind of helps us deal with. Like if I had not been able to fly right after my car caught fire, I would have lost my damn mind.
Right.
Like I didn't have that level of insurance on it, so it's not covered. Like what do you do? Like my neighbor had a rollback truck, but I couldn't really even afford to pay to have it towed. Like everything, like, talk about a curveball, like life just hands you shit sometimes. And if I had not been able, if Daniel hadn't been there and I hadn't been able to fly right afterwards, like I would have been in such a pity party that it would have been nuts. Like, but I was able to get out. We spent like 3 hours waiting for the tow truck, like just in that construction site flying, filmed some B-roll, filmed him flying. Like we just kind of had a chat, like we were just kind of broing out on the, and it was one of those moments, and Daniel, funny enough, has just kind of always been there whenever I've met Disaster. The first time I ever met him, my remix got stuck in like a 50-foot tree. And I had never met him before. I had never met him before ever. And it was the first time my quad got stuck in a tree. I don't know if anyone else remembers the first time their quad ended up in a tree, but he was a member of the local pilots group on Facebook for Western North Carolina. And I'd never met him before, hardly even ever spoke to him in the group. And he was like, "Where are you?" And he drove like 40 minutes from Black Mountain. And he spent like 7 hours with me trying to get that quad out of that tree. And it's just one of those things that, like, this hobby is full of the most amazing people you'll ever meet in your life. You know what I mean? Like a guy I've never met drives, 30 miles to come help me and we were out there until like 10 o'clock at night with no luck. It stayed in the tree overnight. And then he came back out again the next day and we got it out of the tree.
How'd you get it out?
He ended up flying a rope over the tree.
Yep, flying a rope over it.
And his quad almost got stuck a whole bunch of times. Like, it was not easy. It took like real work. I mean, we tried everything, like, everything short of like him pulling the tree over with his truck. It was gnarly. But so cheers to you, my friend. No quad left behind is right. He is the living, breathing embodiment of that saying. Like, he is just, he finds his way there whenever there's disaster, like Batman. He just shows up.
It's always good to have a friend like that.
It's one of those things, like you meet people like that in this hobby, and it's just one of the, something about what we do that just kind of connects us in a way that most people will never understand.
Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking tonight. I've had a blast.
Cool. Yeah, man. Of course. I am so happy to see you back in the chair, man. Like, really, I'm gonna steal 5 minutes of your time to tell you that. When we met at Quad Camp, I had been watching, when you were doing Dead Band, like I'd watch you guys, like I'd pop your show on and I would begin to tinker. I'd have the house to myself and I would just put you guys on and I would build and I would tinker and I'd be soldering up a storm watching you, and it's really nice to see you back in the chair, man. For me, it's like, it's such a big honor because you were just like one of those people that I would watch and that I looked up to when I first started. And then I met you at Joshua's house for Quad Camp, and it was great, man. It was so good to meet you. And I've always been a big fan of what you do. How's Quad House going? Are you still building?
Oh yeah, I'm still building, still doing repairs. I've got like 4 quads over here to my right. I just got finished doing a bunch of work on. I've got to ship them out on Monday. So awesome. Yeah, I've still been getting at it. I just didn't stream for a while.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And I'm glad to see you back at it, man. You've been one of my favorite FPV personalities for sure.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I'm happy to help you get the ball rolling again.
No doubt. Well, man, I want to thank you again for coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't believe so. No, I don't believe so. I've just, it's been an adventure. And for everybody who supports, Rotor Riot and who supports Flynoceros and Flight One and Newbie Drone and all the other companies that I've worked for, like, thank you. These are really small groups of really enthusiastic people just trying to get by doing what we love to do, So, like, your support matters, and I know that there's always like mad drama in the groups between this person and that person or this company or whatever. But really, like, I wish I could I wish I'd had the opportunity to just do like a behind the scenes, with a lot of these people, because to do like a day in the life of like Rotor Riot or a day in the life of, working at a frame company like Flynoceros, like, you'd be surprised. It's just a small group of people, and everyone's figuring everything out as they go along. Like there's no rule book for any of this. It's just a couple of people just trying to express, their enthusiasm, just the same as everyone else. Like, so if you've ever supported any of those people or me, thank you. It means a lot. We're all just trying to, I'll speak for myself when I say this, but I'm just trying to avoid a day job. So when you support Flinoceros and you support, all these companies, like you're keeping really fun people from having to do really horrible things to make money, like it's so, thank you. That's all I can say about that. Thanks.
No, I have to say the same
it.
thing. I have to wholeheartedly agree with you and thank all of our viewers and everybody who's helped me get along with what I've been doing for sure.
Absolutely. And I try my best to support everybody's Patreon and all of that too, so just whatever I can do to help other people avoid from, stay out of the 9 to 5. I that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to stay out of it myself, and I'm trying to help other people stay out of it.
No doubt, brother.
So, we didn't miss anything crazy in the chat, did we?
No, not too much. Your dad says he loves you.
Oh, I love you too, Pops, and Skadoosh, and all the Team Flino guys. And I'd like to say thanks to Josh Cook and 507 for all the work that they're doing. All the advocacy that they're doing as far as protecting this hobby is concerned. That's thankless work and long hours. So thank you for that.
Yeah, big thank you to everybody for sure. All right, brother.
And thanks for everyone for hanging out.
Next week, I've got on a couple guys from the Goon Squad. We've got Artemis Prime and Mad Chiller coming on next week. And it looks like the week after that, I'm going to have Skadoosh on. So there we go.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. We did the late night with FPV with that guy. And he is one of the most fantastic people ever. And he's got a story, very, very similar to mine, which he will tell, obviously. But I love Skadoosh. He's just a joy to be around. One of the funnest people. Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. And dude, like, be safe over there. I know he's over there in China and they're having that
you gotta
crazy
watch out with the
goddamn
plague or whatever.
Yeah.
Scary shit. I hope you're all right, Skadoosh.
Yeah, man. Be safe. And thank you for having me on, man. Like I said, I just want to say thanks one more time. And thanks to everyone for watching. I'm glad to see you back in the chair. And if anything, if ever I could do anything to help you do what you're doing, I'd happily do that. And now that I got a working truck, my father replaced my burnt car with a working vehicle. So thanks to him. And I'll be popping over to Knoxville more often. We got to get together, man.
Definitely, man. I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Rip some packs and have some good times.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Well, thanks again for coming on tonight. We've been I was really looking forward to getting to know more about you, and it's been a great episode, so I really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Shouts out to the chat. We got 507RC, Big Oily Guy, Broccoli, Double A in the house. We got Jack Fu, your dad Jim. We got John Hart, Kingpin, Noid, Props Off, Remy Timmy, Skadoosh, Tony Briz, and Yogiv Bidrak. I hope I didn't just murder your name, Yogiv. Anybody else, if I missed you, I'm sorry. You got to get active in the chat so I can see your name on the participant list so I can give you a shout out. But thanks to everybody for coming out tonight and watching us, and we'll see you guys next Saturday at 9 p.m. I hope everybody has a great evening.
Awesome.